everyone, and welcome back to another episode of I've Been Playing. Today, it's not about anything new, because this game has been out for a while, but we are taking a look at Evil West. You can probably kind of assume what the game is from that title, but obviously it is set in the Old West, the Wild West of the United States specifically, and there's evil in it. No, they're like vampires. So it's an action title. You obviously got all your guns because you're a gunslinger because it's the Old West, but you're fighting against monsters and stuff. I want to say steampunk, but I know that's not correct because it's not steam. There is a lot of electricity though, a lot of electricity-based powers. You have a gauntlet that, that's kind of what you start with to punch the vampires to death, and then you get upgrades. Obviously, again, you get guns, but you get upgrades that turn everything electrical. And it's kind of that kind of thing. It's not steampunk, but it's the, I don't know, electric punk? Is there a name for that? There probably is, but I don't know what it is. But you know what I'm saying. There's a lot of electricity, you get lightning powers, you zap vampires with lightning. I mean, honestly, what more do you need? There is a story, of course. I'm gonna be honest, I was only half paying attention to the story, especially towards the end. It's not like a bad story or anything. Obviously, you're hunting down vampires, and you start with hunting down one vampire, and then a super powerful vampire shows up, and you're trying to track her down. That's kind of the main thrust of the plot, really. But it's one of those where the plot's there, and it's not bad, and it's not uninteresting, but I also didn't necessarily want to pay super close attention to it, or just like it didn't seem super important. It's important, but not that important. You know the type of games I'm talking about. It's like, there is very obviously a story, but like, I'm definitely more focused on the gameplay because that just feels more like the type of game it is. And as I said, you zap vampires with lightning. Like, that is why I'm focused on the gameplay and the combat. And another part of the reason I wasn't really focusing on the story too much is that the writing wasn't always the best. Again, not bad, not terrible. There were a couple of moments that made me kind of laugh, but like, it's not extraordinary. Nothing to write home about. Eventually I just found myself like, you know what? I don't really care. The combat's pretty fun. There are a lot of different powers and stuff, and you can upgrade your powers. You can find cash around the world, and you'll get cash from leveling up also. So you can spend that on upgrades for your weapons, and you also have perk points because you level up, and those are a separate upgrade kind of a thing. But that's how you get all your weapons to be electric, so you can unlock new moves, new special abilities. You have, it's not a magic meter, it's an electricity meter, so you have special moves you can do when you have a certain number of battery charges built up. And there's just general shooting. Again, you have a gauntlet that you can punch people with, which is pretty fun too. It doesn't feel completely polished. There are definitely a couple of times where I feel like I was hitting buttons and it wasn't responding at all. The camera can also be a problem. Like, there have been several times where or just running around in general, you get stuck on things very easily, but sometimes the camera gets stuck in a wall. There was one fight I'm thinking of where I got backed into a wall and the camera was behind the wall and I was stuck on something. I couldn't see what was going on. Like, can I get out of this situation, please? That'd be great. So, a little more polish there would be nice, but once you get used to it, it did take a little while to get used to, like, all the button inputs and stuff, and button combinations, because some of the moves are maybe not button combinations you would expect. You know, there's a lot of using the sticks instead of the buttons, or in combination with the buttons. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you get it, it's fun. It is a very combat-filled game, I would say, which makes sense. It's an action game set in the Old West with vampires in it, but it is very go here, shoot things, go here, shoot things, go here, shoot things, which I can definitely see getting annoying. Thankfully, it typically feels good to fight things, so it's not that big of a deal, but, you know, if you want a little more to it, you're probably not gonna get it. Hi, so this is later me coming back with a bit of a caveat to my statement. I think this game is fun and fine to play as long as you are playing on an easier difficulty, and here's why. This is several days later, so I don't remember specifically what I've said, but I think I may have mentioned that I am playing, or was playing, on New Game Plus on the hardest difficulty, which was fine. For a while, because you have all the upgrades and stuff, and I mean, it's the same enemies. The beginning of the game's not that difficult. Even on the hardest difficulty, the second time around especially, again, because of the upgrades. I don't know how it would be the first time around, because I didn't do that, but since I've gotten back into 100%ing things, I was like, well, these are kind of some of my least favorites because it depends on how well the game is balanced, but I'll give it a go, and I wasn't finding it that difficult, so I thought maybe it'd be fine. Turns out, it wasn't fine. I was doing pretty well for most of it. Got through the first, I'd say 10 chapters with little trouble. But that's when the kind of cracks started to show. And as of right now, I got to, I think, the first battle of chapter 13 out of there's 16, right, I think? And I have at least temporarily given up. That's because this game doesn't get difficult because it gets harder. I mean, it does get harder, but it doesn't... What I'm trying to say is, it doesn't get harder because they made it more challenging. It gets harder because the enemies are tankier and there are a lot of them, and that's kind of how they increase the difficulty, is just making the tanky enemies way tankier. And I forgot that towards the end of the game, they just throw you in arenas with like 3 or 4 or 5 mini-bosses, quote-unquote, at the same time, these tanky enemies, plus all the little ones spawning all the time. And like, once you kill enough of them, more show up, and a lot of the times they're more tanky enemies. And I was playing this first fight. Now, I was starting to get a little annoyed, like I said, by chapter 10, but by the time I got to the beginning, the opening of chapter 13, and there's like this flying kind of a mini-boss enemy that you fought before, plus 3 others, I think, plus another enemy that can teleport and regens health with thankfully just its own health, but that's annoying enough as it is when you have everything else going on. There were 1 or 2 of those, and then like a couple of smaller enemies, and then I tried to kill the ones on the ground because the one in the air is really annoying to take care of when like things are going on around you on the ground. So I tried to kill the ones on the ground, but I killed enough on the ground that like more spawned, and some of them again were more tanky enemies that are just, it's not fun. I wasn't having fun. I was getting not even frustrated. I was getting to the point where I was actually angry, and I was like, I need to turn this off for now at least, possibly forever. We'll see. I don't know if I'll ever come back to it or not. I'm not that far from the end. If I go into it like not annoyed, I might do a little bit better, I don't know. But it's just, it's not the type of game that really works well for combat that frenetic, because there's too much happening. The controls are too sticky is the best way I can describe them to really work well. Like I'm trying to target one thing and it snaps to another, and I tried to turn the snap function off and it said it was off and it was still snapping to things, and it's snapping to the enemies I don't want it to go to. I want to shoot the thing in the air that I am aiming at, very clearly aiming at, mind you, and it just goes to another place or doesn't lock on, even though I'm clearly hovering over a thing I can lock onto. And yeah. I think if you play on easier difficulties, it's fine. And I'm not saying it's impossible to do on the hardest difficulty, it's just infuriating, and it's not one of those challenges that feels fun. It's one of those challenges that feels like nobody playtested this. So, you know, take that as you will. I would play it on lower difficulties. Obviously, that's up to you if you decide to play it or not, what difficulty you want to play it on, but trust me, it's more frustrating than it needs to be, and you're only harming yourself. That's all I wanted to add here. I still think it's worth playing, I just think maybe don't play it on hard. Overall, my impressions of the game are decent. I'd say it's like the definition of a 7 out of 10 game, and it feels like an older generation game, like in a good way, where it's just kind of, we wanted to do this. It's not super polished. The buttons are maybe, they are better because it is still a recent-ish game, but like we just kind of did what we wanted, and here's our game to have fun. And it is fun, and it definitely is fun. It's nothing amazing, it's not bad. I don't know how much it costs, I don't remember. I think I might have gotten it as the free game of the month, possibly, I can't remember at this point. I have had it for quite a while, and I actually started it about a year or 2 ago, and then dropped it, because I don't know, probably too many things to play, would be my guess, but it's just kind of a fun little thing to fill your time with, and it's actually longer than you'd expect. There are, I think, 16 chapters or something, and it feels like it's building to a conclusion probably 4 or 5 chapters before that. It is to one conclusion, but not the main conclusion. So it can take a little longer than you're expecting, maybe if you want like an 8-hour experience. It's gonna be longer than that, I'm pretty sure it took me longer than that. But, I mean, I'm enjoying myself, for the most part. I'm now playing on the hardest difficulty, so it's mostly okay, because it's on New Game Plus. Like I said, if you can get it probably on sale, I would try it out. It's, again, nothing spectacular, but it is a fun time, and it's worth playing, especially if you want something that feels kind of like all those action games from, like, the Xbox 360 era, but, like, a little more polished, obviously. It's been fun, and I recommend it. And those are my thoughts on Evil West. If you've played this one, or heard of this one, or want to play this one, please let me know down in the comments down below. Do you agree with me? Do you not? Have you heard of this one? I suspect not. I feel like it wasn't well known and wasn't particularly well advertised, and it has been, I think, 2 or 3 years since it released. I don't remember exactly. So, like I said, I would recommend checking it out if anything I said or any of the gameplay footage you saw looks appealing to you, because I do think it's worth a play if you're into that kind of thing. Leave a like if you enjoyed this, and I will see you next time!